And I have 601. I think so. It looks like they can hear us, so we should be fine.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just kind of what I wanted to do with call everybody together in one location, as far as the decision makers for the city and the kind of levy and the ballot initiative. You can do introductions. That'd be good.
Can you all hear everybody?
That I'm being told that they can't hear. However, we're live streaming it. Said there is audio.
Mr. Schmidt said we can hear mostly. Susie said Dawn sounded like she cut out. I think you're probably just going to have to speak loud. Go ahead and yell. It's okay.
Okay, let's start out with introductions.
Ray Weiss, EO Buchanan County Health Center. Clayton North, Buchanan County Supervisor.
John Vogel, Buchanan County Supervisor.
John Burns, Buchanan County Supervisor.
I'm Chris Ayer, Buchanan County Emergency Manager.
Scott Buzinski, Buchanan County Sheriff.
Chris Wogenbush, Buchanan County Auditor.
Gerald Denny, the Mayor Winter.
Chris Steven, Jessup Mayor.
On the back wall.
Brian Prasader, Independent City Council.
Denny Bell, Jessup City Council.
Worling, City Council.
Okay.
Jason Kaiser, Fairbank Mayor.
Fred Liger, Defense Mayor. Mike Malcolm, Spectator.
Yeah, I'm the titles. Upper City Council on Veterans Council.
Mike Aaron, Fire Chair, Fire Chair, Fire Chair.
I'm Mouser City Council. Please agree with me. Bonnie Urban is the fire.
Sherman.
Well, welcome everybody, and I don't know, I guess I can start the conversation off with what I'm wondering is kind of the way forward if the vote doesn't pass, and the way forward if it does pass. I mean, I know kind of what I would like to do, but I don't know what anybody else's ideas are, so we can.
One thing that I think is really important when we're talking about the levy is that we talk about the fact that Fairbank and Jessup have theirs. Talking about independence as if we have ours. It's really Fairbank, Jessup, and the rest of Buchanan County. We just happen to be in Buchanan County. We don't have a separate, there's not a separate portion that's independence. So when people are talking about this, they think that this money's going into defense. This money's not going. County, Independence has one vote on the EMS board in terms of what recommendations would be for the entire county. We just happen to be part of that. We wouldn't have any say. We don't get any money. We don't get anything from it. So people are under the misconception that for some reason independence is the one that's driving this. The fact that driving this thing, and we're not. The county is the only one that can get the money if we have the levy. And the county is the one that's responsible for it now. We just happen to be, along with the hospital, be participating with, somebody that's handling the county with the AMR. So I just think that a lot of the, when you hear people talk about it, they talk about it as if we don't want to give money to Independence. Independence isn't going to get any money out of this at all. So I think it's important that people understand that.
For chapter, all that money goes into, it has to go into a special account, and it's kind of separate, a trust fund. So, I mean, that's how it is to be set up. So you're right, Independence doesn't get.
Could you possibly explain how we got to this point, like from the time area left to how
Yeah.
AMR got here and then why the levy's being proposed now?
Yes, I can. So I was under the misconception that, as I think a lot of citizens are, is that the hospital was supplying the ambulance because that's how it had always been up until a certain period of time. And then area ambulance took over, when the hospital said, hey, we can't make this work anymore. And so they stepped back, area ambulance came in, they were a 501c corporation. With the cost of medical supplies and I think probably the onset of COVID and all of that, they could no longer make the numbers work for them either. So they came forward and they wanted some stipend or whatever, just a little bit of funding in order to continue to make it work. And then I don't know what happened. They decided I guess negotiations were going very well, so they pulled out. Then this whole area was going to be without an ambulance service unless we did something. So then the county and hospital got together and each pay 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. The service is going to end. The contract is up, I believe, in 2026. And so then we're either going to have to renegotiate or we're going to have to figure out a different way forward.
City would not sign a contract anywhere similar to the contract that's currently.
We would read that contract with her.
So it's a terrible contract.
Yeah. I got a couple things. I'm here obviously as the mayor, but I'm here also as homeowner out in Wendlings where my mother also lives. So let me start there, okay?
Okay.
What vision or goal does the city of Independence and or the county have going forward? We talk about, well, we might have a contract with AMR, or we might not. But we might sign a different contract, or we might not. We might go with so-and-so or whatever. Is there a clear vision of Independence getting municipal ambulance, the county getting a governmental ambulance? We're never going to get a governmental ambulance. We're going to keep going with profit or nonprofit ambulances. Where's the vision forward?
With respect to the city of Independence, for the county, for the purpose of the county, we wanted to make sure we had ambulance service for the county. But if the levy passes, as we hope it does, then the county supervisors and the EMS commission will make recommendations in terms of what's necessary and whether we get to the contract and we don't get to the contract. I mean, keep in mind that when the levy passes in November, it doesn't immediately start having money generated. It's going to take us, what do we figure, 18 months or approximately before any money would come in. So we've got to find something.
Three cycles.
And so if you've got that, and then at that point, AMR's contract starts, so we can do whatever we want to do with regard to that in terms of the county, because the county would be has the purse strings, they're in control of it all. The city has no intention at all of having its own ambulance service. We'll talk about that if for some reason the levy does not pass and the county doesn't have a way of funding some type of an ambulance service, and we're stuck calling Mercy One over in Waterloo for all of our ambulance in the entire Buchanan County, other than what Fairbank and Jessup can provide. If we were going to consider an ambulance service for the city, it would be for the city. We wouldn't be doing any side of the city limits itself, because right now we've got the tax, there's no tax that's coming in from, or no money that's being generated for anything that we do outside of what our own citizens pay within the city of Independence. So everything that for the majority of the county, other than the Fairbank and Jessup, we're funding, our citizens are funding from the city of Independence, the money for that $150,000 that we're paying a year. That's not coming from the county's paying their share and the hospital's paying their share. But we've got the citizens of Independence that are basically funding the county, which is a responsibility of the county. So I don't see us signing, I don't see us doing that, and I don't see us signing another contract with AMR.
Okay, so I mean, that's,
again, I don't have a vote. Okay.
I understand. My thought process is, number one, I don't like to use tax dollars to fund an ambulance service because they not only are getting our tax dollars, they're also sending out invoices to the people that they're doing transports for and everything else. So they're getting, to me, double money. I don't know, I call it double dipping, and that's just how I have it worked out in my mind. And so what I would like to do is look at somehow funding a county ran ambulance service and having the paramedics be our staff. That would be my vision, my way forward, my vision forward, as long as we could continue to house it at the hospital and work as partners with the hospital. That would be, to me, that would be a perfect goal. Because
You're gonna buy two ambulances to do that?
you what?
You're gonna buy two ambulances to do that?
I think
We would have to. We don't have anything to use.
See, the thing that happened with AMR, my understanding is the same thing that was conversation with Aaron. Again, this is cohort. Wade wasn't on there. I wasn't there. John wasn't there. So we've got three different people that were there that we read the sign. But my understanding is that AMR said we can't do it just by the monies that come in from the collection from the people that were transported. So we're going to need some type of a stipend. So they were trying to figure out what it was, and they came up with this number that if we paid 400, I don't know exactly. It's,
Right now, it's gonna end, 422,100.
okay, so it's not quite 450 then. So on an annual basis, AMR was supposed to show our committee, the three of us, the books, so that we knew how they were doing, because this wasn't supposed to be a profit thing for them. This was supposed to be, the concept of it, at least my understanding, this was supposed to be, we were going to pay money out to make sure that they stuck around and were able to do this. And first time we have a meeting with them and we ask them for their records, they say, we'll tell you that we're doing just fine, but we're not producing any documents to you. So obviously the wording of the contract was not sufficient that made them do it. It basically said that they'll, on an annual basis, they'll provide information and indicate to the board up there that they've got, that they're not underwater, basically.
right.
We didn't look at it in terms of they're making too much profit. So that's kind of how my understanding of how that happened. I mean, John, you may know different.
No, you're pretty accurate. They are a for-profit business.
Right,
They are.
but I think their profit comes from, well, I thought their profit would come from the transports and the transfers and the other types of things that they were doing. And we didn't, I don't think, we thought we were just paying an amount of money, and that once we got into the contract and into, year by year into it, that we'd be able to look at it and say, okay, well, you're making more money than just breaking even here.
You don't need the
You
subsidy.
don't need to subsidize anymore, and we can either cut that number back or eliminate it completely, because did the area get any at all? I know that they were asking for it when we were negotiating.
When the beginning when that all started, I happened to be on the board when that all started. Gary Gissel was our point person on that. They first came to us and said that they're going in the red, they're losing money here in Buchanan County, and we need to be, they call it supplement.
Right.
And the same as ANR, they call it a supplement. And they said, we need to negotiate a supplement dollar amount. So we thought, okay, we don't want to lose ambulance service, so talks started again between the city and the hospital and the board of supervisors, and then what they're talking about for supplement dollars. Well, then all of a sudden, we didn't get very far into them discussions, and all of a sudden they said, forget it, we're leaving anyway. So they pulled it up.
Hurt on that. Somebody's butt got hurt on that, where they asked for 50,000 or 250,000 area.
Right.
Because in my local community where I'm at on Quatsby, this costs me a shit ton of money for taxes. Now, for get rid of your area for less than 50,000, if they're asking 250,000, how much does AMR cost us?
Yeah.
How much does AMR cost me?
I never seen any dollar amount presented what they said. All of a sudden, they just dropped it. They said, it don't make no difference. We even all final dollars here, we're leaving, period.
I know,
And we're gonna give you so many, they give us a time period to then let us find somebody else, I think 60 or 90 days. So we were scrapping and really working hard and just trying to get somebody to come in and provide ambulance service in our county. And the only one we could come up with was AMR at the time.
I know,
And they want something.
I know at one point Gary told me that somebody at area had, when they were negotiating numbers, had given him a number or said something to him about it. And it was a total out and out lie, and it pissed him off. And he said, well, you know, if I can't trust the people that I'm negotiating with on this, then we need to look for somebody else. And he said, oh, fine, look for somebody else then. And that's the story I heard. Whether there's fact to it or not, I don't know, but that's the story I heard.
Well, not to get too deep into the weeds here, I worked for a professional fire department that ran an ambulance, and I'm telling you what, folks, yes, you bill for calls, but there's not money. There's not money in that. So when you're hiring, and I'm not bashing, you know, AMR or anybody, the money comes from transports. That's where the revenue piece of the pie comes from. And I think you're kind of seeing, again, getting deep in the weeds here, you're seeing the fruit of that tree. So they're going to take 2 ambulances or whatever, at least one, and they're going to do as many transports St. Luke's out of this hospital as they can. Thus, Jessup's going to be over here when you're on the ambulances, or Fairbank, or what.
That's another part of the contract that when it was written was right. It was written poorly because we understood that we're going to have 2 ambulances at all times. And their understanding was there's 2 ambulances all the time, but we're not telling you they're actually staffed. So we went, what?
So I think part of that vision would be to have emergency service, just like the fire department, the sheriff's department. And I think you're right. Through the county where your priority is emergency response. If the tax goes through, you're getting taxed for that anyway. If you're fortunate enough to have enough ambulances and not enough emergency runs, which doesn't happen that often in this county, folks, I'm telling you. There's enough emergency calls to go around. Scott can tell you that. We can tell you that.
Right.
The transports would be the gravy. But when you got a company that's relying on making a profit or gaining a profit from making runs down to St. Luke's, Waterloo, Manchester, Iowa City, they're going to do it. Mercy One's the same way. And not bashing them, they all have wonderful paramedics, but it's a business.
Right.
No, we're not a business. Scott's not a business. Independence Fire is not a business. We are a service.
In working with the EMS advisors, our goal long-term is to have a county-run ambulance, which would involve buying at least 2 ambulances. We probably have to start out with a couple of used ones that we can find on the market. And there are some that are out there only a year or 2 old that would get us started. Because at $500,000 a piece, by the time you equip an ambulance,
Why not?
it's going to eat up our money really quickly.
Don, you sent me a quote on an ambulance thing. It was a lot. Found somewhere, right?
Actually,
Used one.
Chris found it.
That was just, just one I popped up on one of my marketplace things that it was just a used ambulance. It was the older van style transport vans.
Right.
That I think it was what, a year old, and it was only
A year old. I think it was just a demo model too.
demo.
Well, you need fully put together, but wasn't it only like 150,000 or
It
so?
was less than that. I think it was
But it did have the load system or anything with it.
that I didn't look into that.
Probably not, Bill, but you know, I mean, obviously we know that whatever we're going to get, we're going to have to do it to whatever our people need. But I'm just,
Well, you'll have funding options if that bridge gets crossed, because then there will be bonding.
And equipment should be one piece of it. The other thing would be hiring qualified paramedics and EMTs. But we would make them county employees. They would then qualify for benefits and hypers. And my goal, would be pay better than what people like AMR do. Because like these people are not being well compensated.
$12 an hour, $14 an hour.
Yeah, that's-
I can go 45 minutes and get $42 an hour down in Cedar Rapids. So why the hell would I stay here?
you got
Exactly.
$12
Like everybody in here, should live in this county, do what they love.
That's right.
You're part of it.
I just had a point back to
his comment, and then I got a quick other. Being from Jessup, you talked about AMR takes all these transports. So their number one go-to is Jessup. So the Jessup volunteers come over here, they get here, pick up somebody that's 3 blocks from the hospital. They take the hospital, they get paid from the hospital or from that pickup point to the hospital. If AMR gets back and they take that call back over, Jessup goes back home with no pay for anything. So we're making runs, our volunteers are wore out. And now our volunteers, and the way it sounds like it's gonna be for everybody, part of this deal is that they want to get paid stipends because they're getting burned out. And they want to get paid on time call, which according to our meeting Tuesday night in Jessup's gonna take half this new budget or more. And now you guys are talking about buying all this equipment. There's not enough money, folks. I don't know. I'd like to see your budget. What did you use for a budget to come up with this tax and these monies? Is there one?
Yeah, you got $950,000 or whatever.
No, I want to see the numbers that went into the budget. How much you're going to pay for equipment, how much you're going to pay for maintenance, how much you're going to pay for stipend, how much you're going to pay for full-time paramedics.
There's numbers that were done when the committee got together, and there, somebody can correct me, but there was also an independent person that was hired, a consultant that participated as well. And they made the determinations on the numbers, and they came up with a list of how they were going to distribute the money. And there was a larger amount in the first year because there was a lot there, there was a startup cost. But once you got past the first year, the thought was that it would the amounts would go toward training, the amounts would go toward stipends, the amount would go toward equipment, supplies, all kinds of other things. I mean, there's numbers that are written down here.
Training.
The problem is knowing how accurate it's going to be, because we don't know where we're going to be in 2 years when it actually starts funding it. And to try to figure out what an ambulance costs now, it might not be the same in 2 years. To determine what the cost of supplies were, who knows? The supply chain could be way off, and it could be a lot more expensive than we think. We anticipate that probably the training is going to be about the same, but we have those numbers. I mean, you guys can tell them what numbers we had.
He used $500,000 because I think that's what we currently are paying. The goal would be to eventually lessen the burden on Jessup. It would be also to lessen the tax, 75 cents. Yeah, that's a lot, but that would be the startup, so over time, when you're starting to bring receipts back in, then the goal is to take that tax levy down so that our citizens aren't burdened so much.
Yeah, my understanding is that the reason the number of the 75 cents per thousand came up was because
So did that. I think that's what Dennis.
okay, that was the highest amount that the state would allow. The state established that number. And then what we did was what the committee did was they used that as a base number, thinking, well, we don't want to go back to the citizens and ask them for more. Say we did 40 cents and then that wasn't enough. And then we'd have another levy that we'd have to pass again with 60% in order to change the number. So we took the highest amount that was allowed, figuring that when they got to the point where we knew exactly what was going to be spent and what was, we had a little bit of history, we could then reduce the levy. Much easier to reduce it than it is to increase it. So that was the thought process. At least that's what we were told. I'm not on that committee.
Okay. Question 2, is that copy of that consultant's report available to the public?
It should be the first one that was passed was out there in the minutes, and you have a copy of this one.
Is that their entire report? Is that what they
Yes.
turned into you folks?
From what I
That's what
The
we turned
consultant's report.
into. That was what's turned into us.
That's all you got. Okay, so I want to go back to this. You talked that you had to go to 75 cents because you can go back down if at some point you can.
Correct.
Okay,
That's my understanding anyway. That's what I've been told.
but now I want to go back and just make sure that I'm clear on this. At the meeting the other night, I don't remember the numbers exactly, but Jessup is maybe gonna get $168,000 roughly.
Yeah, the way that that was calculated, I'm sorry to interrupt you, go ahead.
Yeah. And I think it was 70 some thousand, I believe, I may be off on these numbers, but I'm close, 70 some thousand for having volunteers on call in Jessup. Monday, I would think that was from 7 or 8 in the morning till 5 at night, or I think it was 9 hours a day, at least 2 people. That's what they're telling, that's what they said Tuesday night.
Sure.
Plus, on top of that, you've got, and that number's all over the board, I can't get a number, but I'm gonna use a number of $30 per call per person. Okay, that number was 40 some thousand dollars. So of our $169,000 of new money that's coming into Jessup, 110 or 120 of that's gonna be up in new wages.
My understanding is, and again, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, when the committee first came back to the supervisors, they just had a budget that was just a budget for overall. So you had the total amount of revenue and then you had each of the different categories. Jessup didn't like the fact that that was that way. They wanted to make sure that because they have an existing service, the same thing for Fairbank, that they would take the ratio of the number of the total amount of revenue that we would get, and then you use the amount.
Taxable valuation, the taxable valuation for each EMS district.
So they just use the taxable valuation as a percentage number. That's how the total amount of revenue was decided on.
I understand.
Don, and I know Barry even knows this, you have presented something where the cities, the entities, Fairbank Fire Department and the Jessup Family and certain cities will get their allocations under a agreement.
2080 agreement.
A 2080. So I guess, Danny, what I'm saying is, should it pass, should the councils and the board sign the 2080, where that percentage of money comes to Fairbank, we'll say.
Have you seen the 2080 agreement?
It's getting worked on right now, is what I was told yesterday by the attorney, which we have the same.
We got a copy of it.
Yeah, I mean,
These dollars that Fairbank and Jessup will be getting, it's dollars that come with you. The board of supervisors are not gonna tell you how to spend that money internally.
That's what I was getting at.
Good, and that's kind of what he alluded to. He's throwing numbers out for this and this and this. That must have come from some
that
thing
came
of
from
budgeting
That
and
comes from
Jessup.
the EMS board.
the Jessup. No, that came from Jessup's ambulance chief. That was never presented to the EMS board that I'm aware of.
Because
Well,
when
he talked about it at the meeting last night. That's where I got my numbers, was or Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, that came from Dan, the assistant chief, and the chief, and the
Right.
ambulance chief. That didn't come from us.
if you
Well,
if you get $168,000, we're not gonna tell you how to use it.
And not only that, Jenny, but my understanding is that you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is that number, that the ratio number that you're given for Jessup and that Fairbank is given is just a number in terms of the revenue source itself. If it turns out that the county looks at it and they say, well, there's more of a need this time for Jessup because they need to do this supply or they need this training, whatever, that money can still come out of the pot itself. There's no limitation on, what the county has. If the EMS board makes a rec or commission, whatever we call it, it's a commission association. The EMS association makes the recommendation to the county supervisors that an additional $50,000 needs to go to Jessup because they've got this issue that they need to replace this piece of equipment or whatever the case may be. Supervisors have done it. They've got the purse strings. They decide it and they issue the money. I mean, my understanding was never that this was a locked in number for anybody. It's you guys wanted a number and they gave you a number based upon the ratio and that's how it came up. But you have to do what's best for the entire county. And if Jessup needs more, or Fairbank needs more, or more has to go to another location, then that's how it would end up going in the long run. It's just, it's got to be give and take.
But I don't think you can do that under a 2080 agreement, can you?
Depends on how it's written. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, they're still working. I want to correct something, and it was a misunderstanding, I think, but when the two ambulance chiefs from Jessup were at the Jessup meeting. They were coming up with ideas on what they could do to, number one, secure more participation as far as volunteers and what they could do to enhance Jessup service. And they were just coming up with suggestions. This is nothing locked in stone, Danny.
And I think and I think rightfully so, I might be a little bit confused on whether they represent Jessup or they representing the EMS Association.
At that meeting, they were representing the EMS Association, but they're
Those are the
associated
numbers
with
that I
Jessup.
got from them representing the EMS Association. So
You asked.
It
me
was
what her
confusing.
numbers would be, and she told you what her idea for Jessup would be. She didn't tell you
Yeah.
that. I mean, that's like not an overall number for everybody.
well, Jessup's my concern. That's what I'm worried about.
No, we understand that, and honestly, this whole AMR system has terribly taken advantage of Jessup. It's been, and
Right.
I can't tell you how many meetings the three of us have been at where we're badgering AMR saying, why do you have to keep using Jessup on these things? And, you know, it's ridiculous. And we've also had conversations with them, and I don't want to go too far with conversations with them because I don't know that we would be renewing the contract at the end of the time period. But we've had discussions about the fact that Jessup needed to be compensated when they come out. Just like our independent fire people, when they come out with a lift assist, they're not compensated, but we think they should be. But if we have to redo a contract with AR or area or whoever it might be, that contract's going to be a lot different than this one, and they may not sign it because we're not going to be in this situation again. And if your 2080 agreement is locking in a dollar amount and not allowing the city council, the county supervisors to have a say in allowing to provide additional things, if Jessup needs additional things or Fairbank needs additional things, then that agreement needs to be revised. Because
It's just a rough draft right now.
I'd like to see it, but I mean, I don't think that it's possible to lock in a number like that because so many things can happen. And we can't harm Jessup and we can't harm Fairbank just because we've looked at a number and said, okay, well, this calculation works out for right now.
There's no number tied to it. Like there's not a number on the document.
No percentage, no anything.
There's just an actual valuation for the EMS district is what I think.
I just want to be careful with that because we want what's best for everybody. And we need to make sure that everybody's taken care of. And I mean, who knows that, you know, Jessup could have a problem with one of their ambulances and as a result of it, they need to replace it. We can't expect them to replace it for that kind of money or have major repairs to it, or whatever the case may be. We have to have enough flexibility in our thing to be able to help them when they need help.
For Fairbank, I know Fairbank's
Yeah.
going to go up to 2 ambulances, so, because right now they're covering their area with 1. And, you know, I mean, so eventually, if this was ever to get up and running in the way that it should get up and running, then, you know, when we go to replace an ambulance, maybe Fairbank gets that ambulance next, or maybe, you know, if it doesn't have very many miles on it, it's still good, then, you know, maybe we transfer it to one of our other districts, or we have it sitting in a shop out in Winthrop with somebody able to drive it and to go, you know what I'm saying? Like, to have a broader based service so we get to people quicker.
Like, that's what's important.
Okay, what happens if this doesn't go through? Where are we gonna pull the money from? I mean, I get it that this passes, you gotta figure it out partially.
Well, that's gonna be a big worry for us at budget time.
Right.
That's gonna be a huge worry for us at budget time, because then what we're gonna have to do, we're gonna have to go out here, we're gonna start having to pull money out of different departments to come up with the dollars that we need.
Right.
And that's gonna hurt the services, other services that we're providing in the county. I want to, and I'll tell you what, I'm surprised AMR can keep any employees, because I stopped at Quick Star here in Independence Sunday morning. I went pull up the pump to get some gas, and the gal pulled up there. She had a Dubuque County plate on her vehicle, and I noticed on her shirt it said AMR and EMT on it. So I thought, I'm going to visit with that gal. She was just getting on. She was getting
Up
on.
with the gas station that late, huh?
We keep them on a
And she was getting off duty, I suppose, to head back home. But she says when she is on call, she only gets $4 an hour. The severance happens, $4 an hour. And she comes over from Dubuque as an EMT to be on to run the ambulance and stuff. And I thought I seen an unusual thing up there. I went to the demo derby at the fairgrounds Saturday night, and they had an accident out there. It was stupid the way they let people line up there. They had to make an adjustment out there. That's another story. But they had to have a second ambulance come in there, and they had both ambulances in there in the fairground. I thought, holy cow.
They've got 3 ambulances that are sitting over at the hospital. It's one of them's out of service. They're supposed, because our contract says that they'll have 2 fully ready to go, but they have a 3rd one in reserve in the event that there's a problem with one of the ambulances. And I don't know, I mean, if we don't piss AMR too bad on the end of it, it's possible we could make purchases of their ambulances. They may not need them.
Right.
It's always a thought.
Well, I think 6 more hours, if we're gonna start talking about ambulance operations and performing service. I think I'm boiling this bone down to passing this and where the money's gonna go, because and there's gonna be 20 different ideas how to form an ambulance service. Trust me, whether you're gonna get a consultant, whether you're gonna lean on Jessica Fairbank to help. I don't think that's healthy tonight. I think the idea is how much is gonna be generated, where's it gonna go, what's it gonna be used for is the healthy conversation.
That was my question. What is the amount of generation, the money that the 75 cents per thousand would raise?
75.
975.
Yeah, that's right.
I know that we have to fund this thing. That's the second most important thing here. But what generated this conversation amongst the city council that we have pushed so hard is we are not getting adequate service to our residents of this county. Jessup's doing a tremendous effort, service of getting that done. Fairbank is too. We are drowning with AMR. We are getting that from our fire department. We are getting it from our EMTs. We are getting it from our residents.
Yep.
So I'm the guy to put his hand there and say, we need help. And I also, what generated one of those discussions, rather than just coming from our departments telling us that as a council, is that I worry about Jessup. I worry about Fairbank. I'm not on their councils. But just like Denny said, when we hear that AMR is on a transport, so we now call Jessup over, they're 4 minutes out, 2 minutes out, and AMR says, hey, don't worry about it. We're back in town now. We can do it. We sent Jessup back, or with its Fairbank help us out, wherever the mutual aid is. There should be compensation for that. But the important thing is that whoever needs the service is getting it in the most timely manner that they possibly can. And that's why we started pushing this, not because we saw what Fairbank or Jessup was doing with a successful city ambulance service, but our county people need help and our town needs help. And that's why this has been pushed as far as it has just recently.
Yeah, I'm putting on the county hat again, and I have to 100%. I got an 80-year-old mother that lives up by the golf course. That's the priority. And I think that's what this whole room needs to, that is the priority, not transporting non-emergent patients all over.
Right.
Now, emergent transports, yes, that does happen. You know, you got emergent transport from the hospital to another tier trauma center. That's a whole different thing we're talking about. Number one is that emergency response. You know, yes, it's got the sheriff has paramedics, and that is awesome. That helps, especially in our less popular areas of this county. The number one priority is that the citizens of Independence, because again, I have a vested interest here, but there's an ambulance here and it's not coming from Fairbank. It's not coming from Manchester. It's not coming from Jessup. It's coming from the city of Independence.
Right. And the EMS advisory board primary goal is and they want to do the best job they can do. And they're doing it with match checks. I mean, I'm sorry, these first responders out in the rural communities are a lifesaver for it. Because they can be on scene waiting for that ambulance to get there.
Half hour.
Yeah.
But we gotta make sure that them first responders have the training.
Yes.
First of all, we gotta be able to recruit, we need to be able to recruit them to entice them to want to do this. And then we gotta train them, we gotta equip them. You know, they gotta have the equipment that they need to get out there and confidence to do it.
I guess,
And there's a lot of people that might be interested in being an EMT or even going to school and get paramedics, but it's expensive. Daniel Walter said 7 years ago, he got his paramedic, it was over $22,000. So you know, it's a lot more than that now. But some of these monies could be used to offer tuition assistance for anybody that would sign a contract. Yeah, I'm gonna stay on as an EMT for you for 5 years. We pay their tuition. These are all goals that they've got, but until this thing passes, it's hard to say what's gonna happen. One of the goals they had was for all these first responders that are out in all these areas, whether it's Brand, Stanley, Hazelton, get the first responders, what they call jump bags, that would have equipment in them. So they can have that in their vehicle and they can go immediately to a scene. They don't have to go pick up an ambulance or a rig. They can take their car, go there and get right on scene.
Those some of the budget items called the jump and stuff, is
Yes.
that's those items that are in there, right?
Yeah.
So the primary goal of this levy is to enhance the EMS. But you say countywide, but we all know what it is. It's to enhance independence in the county. That's fine. We're just gonna be lucky enough to benefit and enhance our services, which will enhance the county. Don't doubt about that. But primary goal is independence and Pulaski and what the rural areas to have. So that's how quality units available.
Yes, and I mean, if your independent school district and your East Buchanan school district that is gonna be impacted the worst, and I mean, I don't wanna see, you know.
Yes, sir.
You know, come out
Some-
to the school, they
That's
get all the.
coverage area.
Yeah, we had them on the big screen if Chris wants to put them up.
The maps?
Yeah.
I can put them up.
Right, if you're putting up the map of the fire district.
No, EMS district.
Even the medical.
That's the one thing that I would like to ask is, like, for Pulaski's and Winthrop's where they use the fire territory over there, their ambulance services RMC. We have Mercy One, we have North Benton, we have Center Point. So if you're so how do we compensate,
You want,
do that?
excuse me, you want EMS?
Yes.
The reason I want to pass these maps out, you know, Jessup is concerned about the Jessup, but they also cover a great portion outside of Jessup too, which are county residents. I mean, they're county residents. On that map,
Might have to.
on that map, the green area,
Shrink it?
Shrink it.
this would be
Is that
Fairbanks
the whole county?
up here. This large gray
Well,
area
let's see.
is everything covered by AMR out of Independence. Rest of these are outlying communities that are serviced out of Center Point,
North
Benton.
Owine, Delaware.
Manchester.
Manchester comes over and picks up this little piece over here.
That's an important piece over there, Mr. Kurtz.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
So we have mutual aid from all these areas. But this whole big gray area, which is all of East Buchanan and Independence school districts, is this great big gray area.
And make sure everybody knows that these, other than Jessup and Fairbank will be getting some of this money. It's none of it's gonna be going over to Delaware or Owine or down to Center Point. Even though they overreach in with service, they're not gonna get any.
Well, that's just like if Black Hawk County would have something and Jessup goes into Black Hawk County, so does Fairbank. We don't get no money from them, you know, so I don't. Need to, you know, it's a mutual aid agreement.
Because I believe
I'd rather make sure
Benton County
everybody knows
already
about
has this, correct?
Yes.
This advisory board, this is all established by Iowa code legislation. First of all, the board, we had to do a referendum. Yes, so we got that done. That was done by the previous board that I sat with. Declaring this is an essential service. That had to be done first. And then the advisory board had to be formed. It wasn't saying that we had to use, it was decided to use the EMS emergency service as the advisory board because they're roots on the ground. They know what's going on. They know what's happening, what's needed out there. So we thought that was a great fit to have them do it. And then this is not decisions that any of us went to the meetings and said, well, we want to see this, want to see that, because we weren't allowed to do that. They had to come up with all the recommendations and bring them to the board of supervisors. And then at that time, we could say yay or nay. These recommendations all come from this advisory board. And then moving forward, this advisory board has to meet on an annual basis and come back, and they will look at the full budget to see where the needs are at, the biggest needs are at stuff, and come back every year with recommendations like Brad explained, and where we're maybe falling short and maybe where more money needs to be moved around here or there. And this is not going to just be a fly by night. These are public dollars, tax dollars are being used, so everything will have to be well documented. So we know exactly where every dollar went and what it was used for. There's going to have to be invoice and receipts for it, and it's going to have to have previous approval. So this is going to be watched very closely. So there's no anything happening here that's not kosher.
These funds can only be used for EMS related expenses. So fire department can't use it to buy new air packs or anything. I mean, this is EMS.
Money coming from.
Open for ideas.
It will have to come from the county taxpayers, not within city limits. It will come within the county. The money that's paying, I don't know if you know this, Jeff, but the money that's paying it right now for the county is ARPA funds. And as you know how those go, that'll be gone here in a couple years. But from my understanding, the county cannot go in and tax residents of the city of Quaskatoon to fund this, to fund an ambulance service. Because per code, it's the county's responsibility. You'll have to talk to your mayor. I have nothing to do with that. County has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, okay, you're talking about if this passes, everything's going good, and it comes the time to put in a request for this money. Who, and let's use Jessup as an example. Who is responsible for putting that request in?
You have a member from Jessup that's on the board, the committee,
Yes,
just like with.
but no, I understand that, but my question is, who decides what Jessup is going to ask for?
Well, I guess your city council would get together with your individual, and then you would send them to the meeting with instructions in terms of this is what we need, this is why we need it. And then they would pitch it to the commission or the board or committee, whatever the right.
I think what you're getting at is your person would talk to the city council first about, we want to do this for our people.
That's not the impression I've had from the two meetings I've been to.
Okay.
I don't know.
The way I understood it, it was they were gonna,
I don't know of any other, sorry, Chris.
I don't know if it's been said. Yeah.
What was your impression?
The EMS board was gonna decide.
Well,
They were gonna throw,
well,
Somebody's got it.
does make a decision because they're the one that's going to make the recommendation to the counties. That are on that, there's one from every city.
Right.
So what happens is your representative, ours is Blake, or, so Blake would be at the meeting. We would have in advance, we would have told him what we need and what we're looking for. He'd go to the board meeting and he would then pitch to the rest of the individuals there. This is what we need. This is what Jessup needs. This is what Fairbank needs. This is what Bosque needs. And the board would come up with a recommendation. The recommendation they would then bring to the supervisors, and the supervisors would say, okay, we've got questions about this, and ask and send it back, or they would say, and they would approve it. And if they ultimately approved it, then that would be what how the money itself was then distributed for the different items that were necessary. It's not going to be a situation where, where any one city or anyone, the county only gets it based upon the commissions come to them with a recommendation. They're not even making the recommendations. They're just acting upon once the commission has done it. And I assume that whoever's your individual for Jessup would be in contact with you as the county, as the county's, as the city council.
I think what Danny's getting at is, correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, is you can't have, let's say, an ambulance chief go to this board, leapfrog the council and say, we need $145,000 to supplement a new ambulance. First of all, knowing your attorney very well, because she's ours, that's not going to happen because it's not legal. You can't, the department cannot legally go to the county to get money without it being approved for you guys. That just can't happen. It won't happen.
Just a quick follow-up on that. Okay, so I'll say our ambulance association comes to us, to the council, and we vote the meeting, we approve that, okay, this all sounds good to us. You guys go you take it to you guys approve it, everything. At that point, when that money's available, how does that money flow? Does that come back into the city? It does come into the city.
Does it go to the
Yes.
city or does it pay the expense that they've identified? I'm not sure about that.
It would go to the city.
It would go to the city to disperse through whatever the EMS department of what they needed.
Okay, cool. That's fine with me. I just want,
Is
I
that needs a
I
paper
know
trail?
that because of the record keeping
Correct.
that's necessary, say that we've got 3 people that are training and, for paramedics and the cost of the school is X amount of dollars. And Jessup needs one of those people from that. I wasn't sure whether the money went to Jessup to then pay the school or whether the county paid the school in order to keep the numbers.
It's gotta go through the council every time.
Yeah.
Is there one number?
It's gonna come from the county to the city to disperse as needed.
And the city would keep records. of what they
That's the
spent.
city's responsibility. That's not the county's responsibility to track who's getting what or who's paying what.
It's really good points getting brought up, because that's been two of people saying, well, so does the fire department, because we're the ambulance, so the fire department is the ambulance.
Yes.
Are they just gonna go down to the county and say, we need 150,000? Like, no, that's not the way government works.
Yeah.
That's not the way this works.
Right.
See, John,
There's so many checks and balances in this.
John, what you,
I think that we have all, as city councils, mayors, or been on past city councils. I think that we understand how it works with townships and fire and how fire presents their budget to the townships approve it. And then fire comes to the city council and they present their budget. I don't know of any time that the city really overturns that budget or takes too hard of a look at it. It's like, okay, no, this is approved by the fire department, their recommendations from the townships, and then it came forward. So I would assume that it would work very similar to that process.
My concern is that if the state statute on, for the levy money itself, if the money comes into your trust account, and it can only be spent for ambulance related services. It can't go to the fire department. It can't go to the roads. It can't go to the streets. Can't go to anybody. Doesn't the county lose control of that if they just send the money to a city who could?
Then that would be if the city screws up, then that's on them. That's on them. The city. Yep.
Who's double checking all this? Where are the receipts that the city's keeping? Do they go to the supervisors? Or is there gonna be another? board?
They'll get turned back into the EMS association.
Okay.
And they have to present that then to the supervisor.
They have
There'll be invoices kept on all this and documentation, what it was all used for, because this will be audited.
I don't have any problem with that. I don't mean to be expressing it like I have a problem with that. I just want to make sure that the way that the statute's written, because I have not read that part of it in terms of making sure that it's only for ambulance related services. And the county has the responsibility based upon the statute. And then when you're spending the money out, you're going to lose a little all of it if it's going to the city and making sure that I understand the cities are going to do what they're supposed to do. And I'm not saying that any city's not going to do that, but I'm just concerned about that aspect of it to make sure that there's still a control on it. And I know that, Chris, you don't want to have to do all that and that's all that extra work.
If my office gets stuck writing checks for every time there's a paramedic or somebody needs some type of supplies, I will do the same thing I do with public health and their grants. It will be so much per check that the cities will be charged.
I feel more comfortable that the city's handling the money to start with.
I guess, one question I have, I'm not as council member or anything like that, but don't you as mayors and council members have the ability to have your EMS crews give you a yearly,
Well, they do.
what they want, and
Yeah.
that way you guys can plan for the money for ahead of time?
Absolutely.
That way you guys have the approval or
Right,
disapproval?
and I'm sure that we would have, I'm sure that in that situation, we would have an account set up just like the county would in terms of a trust account and money would go. in.
Well, you'd probably have to set it up the same way that the way the Department of Management requires you to.
We already have a separate line item for it anyhow.
Yeah. And that's,
For
I mean, that
sure.
comes from Des Moines. It's the required way it has to be done.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll follow it.
I'm gonna muddy the waters just a little bit here. One of the things that EMS Association have discussed is say somebody, Fairbank had a cardiac monitor in their ambulance and it died and they needed a replacement. And those things are about what, 60, 80,000. And we might have the ability to get a grant through whether it's Blackhawk Gaming, or Community Foundation, or the Health Trust, but they need matching funds. The EMS Association would be able to take funds from the big pot and ask the board of advisors to transfer that to Fairbank, to use as matching funds to get that equipment. And that's a big piece of this. And that's part of what this big pot is about. And you also brought up the issue with we're not gonna have enough money in this to start buying ambulances and everything else in our first probably 2 years. That's why kind of behind the scenes, I've been talking with the bonding company that we could actually take out a short-term bond and then use the proceeds from our levy to pay the bond back if we did have to go out and buy a lot of equipment. So those things are kind of in the works, but I don't want to muddy the waters with that specifically in here.
All right, so we've all talked about how great it's gonna be once the levy passes.
We got to get it passed.
So. But yeah, what happens with it? What happens if it doesn't pass? Besides the fact that we try to get it on the ballot again, but I mean, that aside, what do
We
we
have to wait till the next general election for that.
Passes will continue on with a lot of the struggle we got today. And then the board of supervisors are gonna have to decide where we're gonna pull the money to fund our share for the ambulance. And we can't raise taxes on it. Create another tax, that's what this is all about. We're gonna have to pull it from where we need to pull the dollars from. These departments are gonna have to operate with less money when we take it away from them.
I can't guarantee you that the city of Independence is going to sign a new contract with AMR or anybody else and pay any share of it though. It's a county responsibility. I can't tell you that what a council is going to do. But then what are you going to do? What are you going to do if it's just you and Wade?
Perspective, as we look at this, our biggest concern is that with the AMR contract that ends in 2026, that there's 180 days. So AMR could come to us sometime in 2026 and say, we're giving you 180 days notice. The problem that we see and that we've actually explored a little bit, so we know that Jessup's been doing a lot of work for the county. And so about a year ago, we started reaching out to some of the other regional ambulance services to say, hey, is there a possibility you could supplement us a little bit? We're having some issues here. AMR's having staffing issues. They can't seem to staff a second ambulance full time. All of them said, I'm sorry, we can't help you. We're in the same boat. We don't have the staffing to be able to stretch into Buchanan County to assist you. So our concern is to get to 2026 if the levy doesn't go, and all of a sudden they give us notice and we can't find another ambulance service, we've got 180 days to try to pop one up very quickly at that point, and then we're really struggling just to coordinate and be ready to go. So that's what our concern is.
Or we're giving everybody Mercy One's number.
That's
Tell them
worst
that they're
case.
going to have to contact them.
Wait, this is just a question. I know we were involved with it way back when, and everything. The hospital does not want to.
Correct. It didn't work, that's was one of the original reasons that, this is way before my time.
Yeah.
When it moved over to area, just in terms of our hospital status, we're considered a critical access hospital. So our payment model and everything else is different than what you would get for like Allen or any of the big hospitals. So we kind of structure our services on those that are Medicare service lines that are cost-based reimbursed, which means we basically get our cost. Ambulance service is excluded. That into account, we would have to run it not at a break even, but a little bit more because the way that our reimbursement is, it actually take costs from other areas and it would actually get a bigger revenue for us. So it makes it worse when we're critical access. I would guess that we probably dropped the ambulance service when we went to critical access, which
Very fortunate here is that we got a local hospital that's willing to continue providing housing. They got living quarters for their all. So we're very fortunate there because we have to start putting something together for service here. We don't have to worry about building a building, put the ambulances in and living quarters. It's already there in the hospital for us.
You know, you're coming back.
Well, we would certainly talk to area and anybody else. I mean, the county would, so that was one of the ambulances we talked to about a year and a half ago, just to see if they could supplement us a little bit, and they said no at that point.
Is there any way any of them would be want to do this service though, and not be a complimentary or supplementary?
It's subsidized
Yeah,
service.
I mean, is there anybody interested that want to take over?
It kind of goes back to that. We were part of that before our time on the board. Standing was that the subsidy was offered to area specifically, maybe another service would, but we would definitely. In area still said, no, I don't know.
But John and I
Yes,
had
they
a
did.
conversation with area
Two years ago.
2 years ago, and at that point in time, they didn't want to interfere with the existing contract. So they certainly weren't going to talk to us about interfering with the contract. But my recollection of what they said to us is, if you reach the point where you need assistance from us, give us a call and we'll talk about what options are available. So that they did not interfere with the contract.
They actually did express interest in possibly coming back.
Right.
But
Right.
And the kids.
So
Still got to fund it.
I'm sure that the supervisors would be in contact with anybody that was potentially available for that if that were the situation.
And one of the things the area does have going for them right now, is they have their own training program now for EMTs, paramedics. So,
Isn't that right? That's amazing that they put that
Yeah.
together.
so that's what they're doing. They're trying to boost their ranks because they've got the same problem that AMR and the can't find like. They're trying to make money, so they're not paying real well, but that's why I think if we did have our own county run, it would be such a,
Wouldn't this be a wonderful time
yeah,
to finally not have these problems if this passes and Independence and the county have a service,
yeah.
a ambulance service, like they have a fire service, a police service, a sheriff's service.
Exactly.
Why, if this passes, are you even talking about going to contract with anybody? Now's the time to fix a decades-old problem.
It's more or less the trick. Yeah. Until we get our own goal.
Because before, we couldn't even make money or breaking, by sitting out of it.
Well, I want to say, I think if when I was discussing options with emergency management, I do know that at one point in time, I believe Blake, you might have been part of it also, that there was some discussion about how it could get started, how ambulance service could get started. And, I don't ever break even, but it would sure come a lot closer than paying $500,000 out.
No, it would,
We already have staff there. So you're paying them whether you get one call or 10 calls.
It's very, it's back.
You know, we tried this back in 2016 and council wasn't interested at the time. Budget constraints at that time. I personally think you talk staffing, you look at a fire-based EMS or a private EMS or a hospital-based EMS or a treatment staffing issues in those. Like what Jason said, you have Waterland Fire, you have Buchanan Fire. All these other fire-based EMS services that don't seem to have the staffing issues that AMR has, it's private ambulance service. Area ambulance has a private ambulance service, first one is a private or a hospital-based ambulance service. You're not just an ambulance service, you're a fire-based ambulance service that's running fire calls, medical calls, doing all of that. And with Hawkeye Community College a county away, they're training people and graduating people yearly. That's somewhere including them, Atwood, Dubuque, NXUC, several colleges, Calmar, all those colleges around us, that's where you start working career fairs and drawing people in. And then stepping stone size, 5 years and leave, but you're getting a fresh. And I think you can pay somebody $40 an hour. At a certain point, $1 per hour doesn't matter. It's either retirement, life balance, it's gonna be the community, it's gonna be all those things that bring people together. I know if you have somebody that says, you know, hey, we're gonna go to Dubuque and to work at an ambulance all day and sit in the ER and you're chilling. I don't know if you can pay me enough to sit in long enough. Not, that's the solution, but that's the general direction that a lot of stuff is going nationwide.
And I think like Dawn and well, all you said, Clayton, all you guys said is if that is kind of an end goal, I think you should get that out. And I think that would be more palatable for the people of this county. Also, I'm gonna have my ambulance service. So I'm not taking my 75 cents and it's going to AMR. Okay, that makes sense. That's my 2 cents.
The only drawback to that is that we don't want to lose AMR before we're ready to lose AMR.
Prematurely.
No, I don't.
I have not laid that up a whole lot in all the town halls that we've done, because that is our ultimate goal, but we don't want them.
Well, I do agree with him
Yeah.
that if we were to say that, come out and say that, a lot of the people that aren't in favor of it would suddenly be thinking about it differently, and we may have a better chance of getting it, through. There's also a risk here with AMR. They know we're not happy with them. I mean, we make that abundantly clear every quarter when we meet with them.
Well, the thing about it is too, if the word gets out and they think that we're gonna go through with that, that they're gonna be gone. Their employees that are working for them, they're gonna say, well, I only got a job here probably for 2 or 3 more months. I'm gonna leave because I'm not gonna wait till the last minute. I'm gonna start looking, so that they're gonna have instantly staffing problems on their hand.
Right.
But the thing about it is, this whole thing about the cost of this, I don't know if there's any of us here that could put a business plan has to be put together here. And I'll tell you what, I put some thought into this on the business plan. Here's things that I got a whole list of things that you have to consider when you're working on this business plan. It's just not going out and getting employees and buying an ambulance and some equipment. You got so many different expenses that are on here, the fuel, the rotation of the batteries, the needed repairs, the tire replacement, the workman's comp insurance, the liability insurance. There is so many things that have to be fit into this this business plan, it's just not about buying some equipment and hiring an employee. There's a hell of a lot more to it than that.
But
It's called a plan.
So there has to be, somebody's got to be able to work on a solid business plan. And the talk about, can we get an ambulance for $150,000? Is there going to be any available when we get ready to do this? Or are we going to have to, and if we got to order,
Well, they don't think we're.
you know,
Wait.
or we have to go out.
Ambulances, we can do 4 and 5-year-old ambulances for $20,000, $30,000 with 30,000 miles on them.
right,
Stocking that ambulance, is what's gonna be a little bit cost.
Mhm.
Preparing the people that are gonna be on the ambulance is what your cost is gonna be.
Don't we have those assets right here in our county? Like you're talking about, Clayton, as far as going to Fairbank and talking to them. Clearly, they put together that business plan, going to Jessup, and talking with them.
But I
That should
imagine
be a
that was something that was a gradual thing that probably started out years back with one ambulance and it just kept growing over the years.
Right, I
Until they got where they had a top-notch operating ambulance service. I mean, this is something they developed over many years.
I find it hard to believe that those two communities would turn their backs on us knowing what we're up against because they were too, and that's why they created a lot of what we're trying to do.
We did all that once in 2016. And
We still have some of that, I'm sure.
absolutely, it's dated information.
Right.
Of course, but
Figures.
I mean, we had figured staff, we had workman's comp, we had uniform allowance, we went through and did a whole spreadsheet like that.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think there's your answer. Put that out.
That's what,
How does Manchester make it run so smooth and get along with each other?
Well, that's, Manchester does a little different because Manchester's ambulances run out of the hospital, but their staff actually works at the ER. So I go to the hospital in RMC, no offense. But we're over that way, so when we go to RMC, when I go to the ER, their staff is usually paramedics. They have nurses and doctors, but they're paramedics that run the ambulance. They work in there. If they got an ambulance call, there's enough of them, they go. Then they come back.
Well, you're looking for staff all the time.
See, that was one of the questions that somebody asked me is, why, if we're gonna supplement somebody, why not supplement your hospital, and hire staff to run it out of there? Like an RMC. That's kind of where that was going earlier. Too, I'd rather give my money to my tax dollars to the hospital, run an ambulance out of there that I know is gonna be there. You'd be able to hire ER staff and run paramedics out of there.
We would have.
Yeah. It would have to start.
The technical people that understand it.
Yeah.
Right now, we'd have to hire them.
With hiring people, if we did decide to do it, there might be people that currently work for AMR that would want to jump over and work for us.
They don't have.
They got to be able.
That gal I met at the gas station, I asked her that question. She said, yes, I would go to work for the county.
Because I know there were people that worked for area that went to work for AMR.
sometimes it's about leadership too, you know, if you have poor leadership, then you don't lead people very well.
Well, as far as Fairbank, I think you kind of answered the question. One of the council.
Look at it.
Remotely,
Yeah,
but
that's what I thought.
again, I know Denny, but Fairbank and Jessup worked very hard. Fairbank started the ambulance service in 1960.
That's amazing.
Seven, actually covered all the way.
It's like 75 cents. That's about it, but it's really.
And we
It's
just want to make
taxed.
sure our citizens tax dollars still go to, it sounds like you
Yeah,
have
like I
that.
said, I haven't seen any of them. Nobody wants to.
Whatever, it's in the early stages of this.
That's what it says. Says back.
I don't even want to look at it. I don't want to see the draft. Tell them it's, well, at least till legal looks at it and gets with you. But, and I guess I'd encourage, I wouldn't put that out to anybody until that happens. Let's see the final one. But that,
I don't know.
that I can take our 5 council people and say, I think we're on a good path here. That will, our city's not going to, tax dollars won't go out without some oversight and will come back to fair.
What, I got to ask a question for you. Why wouldn't, re-explain maybe why you want to see the draft? Because most things when you draft, the people that are going to be signing it, approving it on their end, you want some feedback. You just don't want to present it and say, this,
Not the current draft.
this is the permanent one. Well, I think feedback is needed. So
I'll see a draft. I don't want the one that's out now. Not until our legal goes.
Well, and do we really want to circulate it?
Well, I think it's gotta pass first, folks.
As it's so.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a lot of
Really want to
change.
circulate a draft of an agreement before the levy passes?
I think that's the most important thing tonight is as council members, mayors, and even myself, we have to be able to convince the community, the taxpayers, why we need to pass this. What is it going to cost you? Okay, Mr. Whirling, your taxes would go up. What's it going to benefit to your citizens? You know now you're going to get funding back for your EMS. Do we know exactly what? No, we don't. But I think that's the biggest thing is right now, no matter what we do with it, with an ambulance service or what, we have to convince these citizens what this is going to do for them.
I am not hearing is what do we have now and how much are we paying for it?
I've heard that. You guys have that number.
yeah, right now, 400.
But it's not out there.
The public doesn't know what you're paying.
Correct.
I understand that it's there. I know what it is. I can read. I think it needs to be verbalized. This is what we're paying now. This is why we're taking this step.
I've said that at meetings that I've been at, the dollar amounts. The problem is that I'm hearing back on the other side is that they don't want to fund AMR. They don't understand that it's not funding AMR.
Yes, and yes.
So as soon as they start talking about funding AMR, they're going, well, I'm voting no then because I don't want to fund AMR. You see it all over Facebook and everybody essentially.
Because it's all
You
true.
have that and so I'm not sure that putting the number out there is beneficial to all of the public. Because as soon as you start doing that, they've got the people that are already saying you're trying to just refund AMR is going to jump all over that.
Well, whether it be AMR, Area Ambulance, Mercy One, no matter what, the county taxpayers have to fund this somehow or another.
Right, but if you're not going to a private company, if the county's going to have its own service, there's nothing out there that's funding AMR or any other private company. And that's where we ultimately want to be. But are we really in a position, given our contract with AMR, to come out and say that right now, 30 days before the levy?
No, what we need to be able to do is convince property owners why we need this tax.
But their employees get it.
They do.
That's a kick in the nuts.
And also like he was saying,
A lot of people misinterpret that this is all going independent. That they don't understand that it's countywide.
well, I mean, you're talking.
A lot of people do show it.
It's truly a lack of information that has been able to come out to, whether it be Raleigh, Jessup, whomever. It's of lack of information. And I'm not pointing fingers or blaming anybody, but this was rushed. And we haven't had the time to convince these taxpayers why this needs to be done. I mean, like I told the board the other day, why do I want that tax? I'm Masonville, Manchester. I don't want to pay the extra taxes. Well, I got family that lives just out of the district. My mother, 85-year-old mother, of course. But ultimately, people are looking at numbers. What's this going to cost me? So if I go ahead and vote yes, yep, my taxes are going to go up quite a bit for service that's not even going to benefit me. Yes.
That this passes, that money, say 250,000 is gonna go to AMR, it's gonna go back to Chicago, it's not staying in our county, so a lot of them know we need this service. But if I half of them are saying, I'm not even I'm gonna vote no with right now, but the money's not staying here in our county.
Because they think the money's not staying in the county. Yeah, I know, and people are extremely nervous about getting that because AMR might give up their contract early, but they're a business. They're not gonna give up their contract early. Most businesses don't. Because they're making money.
Yeah.
And so that gives us 18 months to put a program together.
The other problem that we have is that people just talk, they talk and they say, well, okay, we're not in favor of it because my taxes going up, but they don't really come and get any information. So you get a town hall that you get 15 people to or show up, you get chamber or with small number of people. You're posting things on Facebook, you're sending your mailers out, but the majority of the people have no idea. I'm amazed I'll be talking to somebody and they go, tell me what the story is with this levy thing. And we have a little coffee group that get together and we're all talking about this and we're all going to vote no on it because the money's all going to AMR. Well, okay, that's not true. But how do we reach the people? Because we're not reaching the people.
And we organized these town halls,
Late.
and so far we've had 4 of them. And they Raleigh had 14 people. Independence had 15 maybe.
It looked like they had I saw it on TV.
Jessup was all their first responders. and Denny.
And there was 10 at Aurora, you said?
Yeah, I think it was 10 or 12.
We're just not reaching people, and I don't know.
And that's a pretty small portion of our population. I mean,
The message too.
I'm trying to deliver the message, and when I explained to them what our goal is, everybody walked out of there shaking their heads, yeah. But I've been very reluctant to go real public.
No, we're talking about money. We've been looking at numbers for 2 years. Grocery store, it's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. And you know, over $2 a dozen now.
Yeah,
I remember we used to be able to buy them for 85 cents.
You don't wanna get.
John and Wade.
I'm just saying, that's what people feel.
Okay, so you're on
Yes.
the board with me involving the AMR contract. I think is the best course of action to take with regard to coming out saying this money's not going to go to AMR, it's going to go to a countywide ambulance service. Now, knowing that we've got
I wouldn't
until
say
November
that
of
because you don't know that.
2026 on the contract. What do you think is is it too big a risk? So that, that we would have nothing with an 18 month notice? 18 months from
Big risk.
the contract's up November of 2026, right? So 18 months before that is when? I'm not the math major, I'm the.
It's a risk, but you can't unring a bell. The 3 you just said the goal, and how many of you are listening? If you want to pass, I truly believe that's your goal too. Is we're paying for a service, just like I keep track of what happens nationwide in the fire and EMS world, and I know Blake does too. This argument happens out west a lot, because AMR also has they have a private fire department. So does rural metro. Communities have these, they play hell passing to get money to tax those private fire departments.
Mhm.
A lot of them are going away from them because of this argument right here.
And if I remember correctly, when we first did the contract with AMR, it was in the intention of this is a temporary solution.
Oh, I'm sure.
And they knew that.
Well, that's because we were under a gun.
And
We
they
were
knew
under a
that.
gun. We didn't have anything.
So I honestly don't think, has anybody talked to them about their future? Do they want to stay here? Do they want to leave?
We don't.
Can you not promote it, this levy that we are trying to build Buchanan County EMS services? Whether it be Fairbank, Jessup, Quasqueton, Winthrop, can't we promote it that way? But I'm going off what they just said, that, or maybe it was you that just said it, whomever. that they don't want to pay. They're going to vote no because they all think it's going to AMR. So somewhere there's a misconception out there.
Brad does a tremendous job. I don't know if anybody's seen his article. It's called 45 Minutes with the Mayor.
It's supposed to be,
A minute with the mayor. And the whole point of that, the reason it gets so lengthy is because Brad does a tremendous job of getting the information out there, trying to get people to see. I think that, and I'm glad John's not sitting here with us. He's probably watching, but I think that readership of the newspaper is maybe getting smaller, and we're not reaching the people that are maybe more technologically savvy. They're getting their news electronically and things like that, both locally and nationally. Is there a way that we could put together a small, a campaign that's easy to read, bullet points? Here's what we can achieve. And it's only 10 bullet points. It's not something that gets too deep in the weeds where we can say, where do these funds go? Are they staying within the community here? I mean, I hate to put it a us and them type of thing because that's going to, stick a finger in AMR's eye. But at least being able to get that information out there so that people are talking factual points rather than what they think is going on or misunderstanding. Because everybody's going to vote no if they just think it's for the money, right? Everybody's going to vote no because everything's more expensive now. We've established that. But if we could do something to try to get some of that education out there, even in a small amount of bullet points to get the point across that this money is staying in our county and helping all of ours. Chris brings up a great point that she's not part of it and she's got to pay for it. But hers are here that are going to benefit from that she has a responsibility to take care of her parents or extended family or kids or grandkids or works every day here. And I think, that may be something we can put together. I'm sure that we can work with local cable. We do have an independence city government Facebook page. As much as I hate Facebook and will not talk politics or city government on it, maybe to have that put out there would be good to get in front of a lot of these people.
And I did talk to Dan about giving me some type of bullet point thing, because I was thinking that I could go on my mayor's Facebook page, because there's a follow it. And
I do.
Thanks, appreciate that.
And even if you follow it, those few people will share it.
Because I don't know of another way, other than the newspaper and Facebook, I don't personally have another way of contacting people. I mean, I know that we could have a news story. I mean, Benny got a news story and coming from the meeting, right?
What's that?
Didn't you get on the news talking about the levy?
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's on the news.
I think that there are still there are still a lot of individuals that have IndyTel, have Independence Cable. I think that if we talk with them, there'd be a way there to utilize their PSA channel, to have that document on there that could show some of those bullets.
Does anybody watch that channel?
Not very many, John, but if we're looking for, who those people are that are watching it? Retired landowners in our county that are renting out their farms or own a lot of property. They're going to be seriously impacted by this levy. And a lot of those people are the ones we have to get to.
So John, if Dan will put something together, the mayors that are here and other people can start trying to reach out through their Facebook and their other pages. I'm just not sure that's enough to reach the majority of the people. I mean, I don't know. It's like we can walk down the street with a billboard
you could.
Well, and we're down to 32 days. 32 days is all that's left to promote this.
Yep. You can't even get independent high school government people to come to a council meeting because they don't believe that they should. These beginning people come.
Right, they're required to.
But the independent people never come to our council meetings, never. And I've asked about it because I think they should be there. It hasn't panned out.
We have trouble with all the time getting our information out. How many times have we had a lot of people come to our boardroom and Chris is saying, well, it's on our webpage. It was in the paper. Well, they say, well, I don't look at your webpage. I don't take the paper. So how do you get information out?
Unless we're going to stop by personally with a thermos of coffee. I'm not sure how to get you to know.
Can we get it on Netflix?
You can do your hangers.
Can we get a TikTok?
I have one meeting here, everybody.
Emails. We do a monthly newsletter, goes out to over 700 people.
Blake, I think you had a question.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
You're talking about getting all this information out. If you're gonna find things, great. But I think you better make sure the information you put out is 100% correct. Because just like at the meeting Tuesday night in Jessup, a large portion of that meeting was talked about the stipends and the on-call pay. Now I find out tonight that that's just the Jessup people talking, not the whole county. I'll be honest with everybody in this room, I got a sign at home sitting on my front porch. I was gonna put out tomorrow after this meeting, says vote no to EMS. And I'm getting a little bit of second thought, so it may be next week before.
Danny had a sign stolen, don't come to my house.
And a lot of that,
Back my squad.
I'm not sure we're, just like the money. I was under the impression that the EMS, that probably the people from Jessup, our chief, assistant chief, the squad, however you want to do it, would put kind of a list of money they went together. They went to the EMS board, the EMS board come to you guys made the decision and we took what we got as a city. And that's completely changed. And I really questioned that, and that was going to be a discussion for our attorney. But some of this information that's out there is, I'm just going to say it, I think it's pretty cited. And it needs to be crystal clear.
And Dan, let me ask you, is the reason, do you think the reason why the town, your town council meeting or your town, whatever you call it, meeting went the direction it did is because the majority of the people that were in the audience were the Jessup EMS people?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they're kind of talking to them and pumping them up in terms of what can be done, as opposed to a bunch of citizens that are out there, but you're trying to get more information. I'm not downplaying it at all.
But at the same time they were doing that, I feel like they were kind of skirting around how they were putting their information out.
Well, I
don't like that.
I mean, I agree 100%. We need to put the information out there. And I think that somebody, whether it's Dan or whether it's somebody else on that committee, should put together bullet points that we can all agree on. And everybody has been posting the same information.
And I truly think that information, I mean, if Dan gets it to you guys, you three are the decision makers in this whole thing. It's got to come from you.
Yeah.
As number one, he isn't on the board, and sometimes when he puts it out, well, decide that we need this, and we're going to come to the board, it's such. And I thought, Dave, if you're coming to me every week with a wish list or a want list, that's not going to happen, because I want to what the money's going to be spent for, how it's going to be spent, because I don't want to make this decision 10 times over.
But he's got the flyer, okay, and when I ask for information about it, he gives me the flyer, but that requires me to take information off the flyer and put it in an order and make sure that it's understandable to people that are going out.
Right.
I'd much rather have a bullet point. That's why we need the levy to pass, and just, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever number it is. And take that information and then start distributing that information, and we could get it's a lot clearer, and we'd be able to get out to more people.
I think the problem's gonna be is that we don't have the same goals between the three agencies involved. Jessup Ambulance has their goals that they talk with at your meeting. Independent's only goal is to pay for AMR and to not have.
Well, Independence doesn't want to pay for AMR, I can promise you that.
But that's what I'm saying. We don't have a goal with our money. We're just gonna. We're paying for AMR this week, and until we make a decision whether we're gonna go countywide or not. I would bet my next paycheck, if you guys went public and said, hey, we're gonna go with countywide ambulance, all those people on Facebook that are complaining about AMR not taking Blue Cross Blue Shield, they have now become yes voters. We're all worried about hurting AMR's feelings, but AMR goes to Mayo and leaves us high and dry.
Right.
And we have people dying, and I'm not even trying to be dramatic. I can look through Rice's obituary and point to them and say, AMR wasn't here for that call.
Based on
I've been on the call. We've gone on. Jason's gone on.
we've had to rely on Jessup, and thank God Jessup is coming over still. They're putting 20 miles on a rig to take a transport half a mile. And they get to charge half a mile for it, but they put 20 miles on their rig. And now Jessup residents are buying a new rig 3 years sooner than what they wanted to, because they're putting 20 extra miles on every day, because we're all worried about hurting AMR speed.
Based upon the discussion tonight, I don't know about John and Wade, but my impression is, let's go forward and say, we're getting rid of, we need a county funded thing that.
We need to pass the levy first. That's our main focus right now. We got, you guys have, like I just said, what did I say, 32, 33 days to get the citizens of Buchanan County convinced to pass this. Yeah.
There's no goal. I have nothing to take back and say, yeah, if they ask me, I can't give them, I have no flipping idea.
Well, our goal is to pass the EMS levy and to put us in a position where we can have a county run ambulance service and not have any private run service involved at all. That's it.
That's the number one talking point right there.
That's right. That's where you leave it.
I think it's pretty easy to put out there to the public that the money that we're going to get taxed on is for ambulance service. However we go, it's ambulance service, whether it's AMR, us, whoever. That's what we're paying for. If we don't get this passed, we couldn't be without an ambulance.
And we likely.
And I think that's pretty easy
will.
to put out there to people.
We likely will be without it. Yeah, another way around it. We talk about all the different options and stuff, but if this doesn't pass, we really will not have an ambulance service when the contract ends.
And if you don't have an ambulance service, you're gonna rely on your first responders more. So if you isolate it to this only being an ambulance service issue, now Raleigh first responders or Kowalski or whoever, go, what about us? Right? Oh, now it didn't pass. Now you guys think we're important? I'm a little concerned about focusing it all towards ambulance, because it's not all towards ambulance. Now you can. Chris isn't paying for an ambulance service because hers is coming from our. And ambulance service coming together.
If you list the points of what the money can be spent on, then.
But it's
But it doesn't
between
have to be
three
done with
agencies,
AMR.
because we have Jessup ambulance that has different needs and wants. Independence needs an ambulance. That's a huge need and want for us. Jessup's, they're sitting with 2 ambulances and 20 members. How many members you got?
I think we're just under 20.
So 15, 20 members. Jessup's needs are way different than Independence.
Well,
Fairbank, you'd love to have a second rig of that.
Good question. We didn't have, if the levy didn't pass and we didn't have AMR, and the county doesn't have the money to fund it, and the rest for an ambulance because they need one and they've got Mercy One, or they're gonna call you guys and ask you to come out and service them someplace in the county because you're the only ambulance service other than Fairbank.
That's not gonna work under our current structure. We're all volunteers. They're not gonna, we'd have to pay. We might be able to do something to help out, but they're gonna have to be compensated. We can't expect them to be running all over the county for free.
Right. Well, I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, we hope it's not even close, but I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what honestly would happen if this doesn't pass, because I don't know how the county's going to have the funding for it.
So if we put, I don't either. I mean, look, back up 10 and 100, I don't know, do we still try to put together our own ambulance service, and borrow money and pay for it slowly out of returns? I mean, how does that work? It doesn't work if you don't have a little bit of tax money revenue to prop that up. I mean, I don't think you can bill enough for services to make that self-sufficient. I just don't feel like you can get
You
there.
can only bill so much. So it's what Medicare allowance is.
Right.
What we bill.
My concern would be if you start pushing this county ambulance service, there's no plan behind it. What are you gonna say when people start asking questions?
What's your business plan?
Yeah, I mean, we don't.
If you had a plan and presented it, this probably pass easy, but it's just pie in the sky at this point in time. We want an ambulance service and our county run ambulance service. That's pretty much all you can tell.
I know there's a lot of voters out there. I heard it in Raleigh down there, all down there. 2 voters and then spouses were there. And they said, if we can be guaranteed, this money's not gonna go to AMR, it'll be a county-run ambulance service. There's no question in our mind, we're gonna vote yes. If you can't guarantee that, we're voting no. And I think there's a lot of people out there that same way.
Right. I mean, I know, like, we do have like, and I'm stealing this from Cedar County. Their EMA manager allowed me to steal it from them.
Jody Free.
Yeah, Jody. And so they do have like a PowerPoint presentation. They had a consultant put it together for them. And it does have prices on it. It's on page 24 of this 26-page presentation. I would have put that up on our thing, on our screen. However, the writing is so little, you have to scroll it really big and then you can't see it. Yeah, but I mean, I'm more than happy to send it to you. So you do, I mean, there's something out there, we didn't build it. And obviously, you know, I'm not the person to build an ambulance. That would take somebody like our ambulance director or somebody that has that expertise and knows how to put those budgets together. That's not me.
And I mean, you guys probably don't care about statistics at all or anything, but everybody thinks that Independence, you know, because we're the county seat, we are 19.55% of the valuation for Buchanan County. If you take the numbers for, you know, the 1,363,720,386, that's the total valuation of Buchanan County property. And Independence of that is 269,402,093, and that includes the tip. So you're looking at 19.755% of the county is actually Independence. So when we're talking about the people paying for this that are residents of Independence, those are the voters that would be involved in that. If you're talking about area of Buchanan County, Buchanan County is 573 square miles. According to the census, Independence is 6.21 square miles. That's 1.84% of the county in terms of how far you have to travel to get someplace for ambulance. You know, population, we're a little bit more, we're closer, we're still in the 20s, but we're a little bit closer in terms of the county. But this, you know, Independence, you know, being the county seat and everything else, we're still not the majority of the county. We're a small fragment of the county. So, you know, we want to do what's best for the county for absolute sure, but at some point in time, we've got to say, okay, well, how is Independence going to help other than just supporting the county and what the county needs to do for this? And we're all for that. But in terms of funding something, I don't see how Independence is going to fund anything in the future, other than beyond this contract with AMR. So.
So we're all in agreement that way to go is say that we're starting our own county. Let the dice roll the way they roll.
No.
And I don't know what the plan's gonna be, and nobody in this room does. But my opinion is if you get the word out that Jessup's gonna lose our city-owned ambulance.
No. City-owned ambulance.
Well, you're talking countywide EMS, so that's, so you're gonna run Jessup.
No, county run as far as the Independence.
Just
area,
Independence.
That's up on the map.
And that,
One moment.
well, that's
No,
where you
no.
gotta be clear so people don't understand it like I did.
No,
Fairbank are gonna keep your existing ambulance district.
There's no way that, I mean, and the county doesn't want to really run an ambulance. I think we're just back to painted into a corner.
And Danny, there's no legal means that they can't take a city department.
Well, I know, but I think you need, my point is, just make sure that's clear.
Semantics is what he's saying. That's very true.
Because in Jessup, that'll be worse than changing garbage collector.
Oh, that I'd see.
If you get bandwidth something together for you guys to try to get something done,
ambulance service after all these guys have been around.
something like that, we don't have much time.
They're all gonna look like a bunch of
I
clowns.
we talked to Dan and
You're wanting to get some bullet points, right?
And what's the bullet points that all the three of you supervisors agree on? These are the bullet points that we can put out.
Yeah, like,
Fuzzy will help me.
Representative. Help with some of those bullet points because you seem to understand the problem very well. And communicate.
areas.
I can help in, but I
No.
would prefer Dan just.
Yes, Denny, can I ask you a question? Just, I'm not trying to pick on you or anything, but what could the county do to make you vote yes?
Yeah.
Well, being here tonight, he's
And I brought that up.
No, I'm just saying,
No.
it's hypothetically, because you're on that, you're on that yes, no thing. What information can we put out that would change your mind to go yes? I guess that's kind of.
Very, very few changes to how Jessup.
Yeah.
You can say that.
Well, Jeff still hasn't got his question
One-
answered.
One of the big complaints we get from our ambulance people is this running for AMR all the time. That's the big thing. I don't really know much about AMR, but what I do know about them, I don't like. And if we could solve that problem, I'd be.
So we're talking about doing the bullet points that says some of that information that would.
As long as it's carefully worded, yeah. I mean, yeah. But I've learned more here tonight than I have with the two other meetings.
I think a vision statement. I just flying around here, but I think a clear vision statement, like Danny says, is a county-run service
To include our existing.
including our existing ambulance services, Fairbank and Jessup, to enhance EMS in Buchanan County, placing emergency response as primary, not transport.
Danny, would it help if the flyer made mention of the fact that the passing of the levy would provide additional funding that would come
Without,
to Jessup and Fairbank?
yes, without changing how our service operates.
Right.
You keep their autonomy.
Yeah, they would stay intact, it would just bring additional fund into your department.
The double billing. And so how, including the billing, how would it change? How would people see an actual change in leaving a private ambulance company and having it run by the county? How would it change what services they get? And how would treat the bill? How would it change everything that?
You zip it over there, mister.
So we would have a third party billing company do it, just same way Jessup currently does it. I think Fairbank does too.
So they would still get
They'd still get.
a bill. They would either
No, like.
If you are.
If we would accept it Blue Cross, we would make sure we would accept it. Blue Cross.
That's what she, yeah.
Yes.
I think that's a huge thing. Yeah.
We'd have more say over it.
AMR to deal with, and I've dealt with them a couple of times for a couple of different elderly people. They are not. They are not kind.
Well, they're not Iowans.
No. They've got a broken to their voice and it's nasty.
But, billing people.
And they'll tell you that they're giving you $600 write-off, but they'll keep sending you bills. So the billing would be done locally.
Yes, well, I don't know.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I would imagine.
You guys see a benefit to Blake sending you the business plan that was put together for the Independence Ambulance Service? In what year was it, Blake?
16, but I don't think so, Brian. There's too many changes in it.
Would give them some type of guidance starting point instead of starting with the blank piece of paper like Clayton had to.
The numbers.
Of course, you're gonna have to get,
Still be the dollar amounts.
yeah,
But I take that all.
Yes.
day long to have the line items,
I would too.
line items and timelines, goals.
So if this doesn't pass, where do I take back? Where's this money coming from?
The money's gonna be coming from their pockets when we're, essentially, because we're gonna have to cut services in some areas in the county. And I don't think anybody wants to lose any services. And we're gonna have to find a nickel here, dime here, and eventually it's $500, and it will go probably to AMR.
Yeah, we're gonna have to cut God's budget, this money.
Plenty off county roads. We don't need bridges.
Well, you can't, that's, you get into that, you can't cut, that's the trouble. They're kind of, that's kind of unreachable, because if we cut that budget back, we don't get matching funding
From the federal.
from the federal state. We get, if we mess with that, when we don't get our
You
matching
can still
funds,
mess with it.
and we don't want to lose
There's
matching
money there.
funds.
So this levy
There's
is the
money
only
there.
foreseeable path to a new in the county that is EMS focused, not EMS, as first responders, Scott's folks that are rescue 10, and a municipal governmental run ambulance.
Right.
This is the only path, is what you're saying.
That's
It's the only way to guarantee that
Right.
all those funds stay in Buchanan County, for sure.
I don't think AMR is giving the dime to costly first responders. I don't know.
Can I throw something out for you three right now? Before that is like, yeah, that's the way we're going. This is truly a work session. So that decision needs to be made in a regular session meeting.
Another thing you gotta be real careful out there, because legislation is very clear. We are supposed to rely on the advisory board. The advisory board is supposed to bring stuff to us, and then we vote on it. That's spelled out in this legislation.
Well, they don't tell us if they're not the decisions, so we have to make a decision how those funds are spent.
But isn't that what you're doing? You're going to the advisory board and saying, we need bullet points so that you guys can look at the bullet points. But it's still, the bullet points are still coming from the advisory. I mean, for all intents and purposes, you guys are just, you're taking a look at it. You're not voting on it. You don't have to vote on approval of the 10-point thing that's going out to the public. All you have to do is we're just asking you to take a look at it in terms of what the committee that's already been approved by you, appointed by you to do the work.
Wasn't asking for approval, the bullet point. If this is going to go out, the Board of Supervisors is going to promote this, that we are going to do a countywide ambulance service with that money. That's the decision that needs to be voted on. And it cannot be voted on in a work session. They're going to have to do it in a regular session. That was what I was just trying to remind them of
I understand.
before it went further.
I understand what you're saying, but.
I
It needs to
try.
Be on our Monday agenda.
I'm fine with you guys passing that, but I've never thought, and maybe I'm short-sighted, I've never thought that we needed to have everything spelled out and all the different line items on the budget and everything else because it's so far away. I've never thought that was necessary before it was actually voted on. So while we have the information already in terms of set forth, we're just changing how we're specifically item up.
We're in their burn ban.
I don't know. I mean, this is why I don't like government, I'd much rather be on the other side of it because I can do whatever I want to then, and I don't have to worry about following the laws of what government requires me to do. So I'd much rather just be on the other side, and unfortunately, I'm not.
No.
Does anybody else have any comments they want to make before?
Just a bit, I got a pitching point,
Let me guess, you're getting hungry.
not yet.
I'm hungry.
And I truly understand the sentiments, Jeff, here, what he's saying. After listening to all this, and as long as we've been here, what has you got, any of you got to take back to your constituents, the people of your communities, that's rock solid?
This levy will make it possible for our dollars that are spent for the ambulance services to stay in Buchanan County.
It's always been the same.
100%, which is unlike our speed cameras that we have no longer.
The fact that we're losing volunteers because they're not getting reimbursed, and the fact that we may lose ambulance service. That's huge for people.
Yeah.
People don't want to be without that.
And we're burning out our helpers.
And
And we all have this, it's in question. Somebody across from my place, I paid the most tax, it cost. It's gonna cost me $1,000. I got the guy next door, I've been there 4 times, it cost him $5 to get that damn ride on an ambulance, so. It's straight. I get really. Yeah, and to take a 3-pack, we grew up, drink some 7-Up, take a saltine cracker and get your ass there yourself.
Yep.
People need to
Don't just know, Jeff doesn't get to work on the ambulance.
This jump pack will have crackers and 7-Up.
That's correct. That's correct.
You know, I think now, use caustic, for example, your first responders and stuff you got down there, they're all aging out like there's all the other communities and stuff like that. How do we draw new volunteers to get people in without offering that we're gonna pay for their training, we're gonna find what they need, we're gonna give them a stipend? There's got them want to do it, because who wants to do this job in the first place and go out and look at blood and guts? You know,
It's in their blood though. People that want to do that want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it is,
Blood.
Yeah.
it is the intention of they want to support the first responder services with tuition assistance, equipment, possible stipends. But it would be up to each of those individuals to determine what they want to do for stipends, if they want to do stipends.
Maybe some mention in the list of things about the fact that each of the cities would be able to come to the commission for the things that are needed for their EMS in their local area. And then ultimately the money to the cities based upon the need and the approval of their commission of which they're. So their cities will have a member in. I don't know, maybe there's some way to word that or make that. That'd be important to people out there to know that.
I think so.
Yeah, but I think I think, obviously that's too long a bullet point, but I mean, there's gotta be something in the bullet point that we could do that would make that point, because I think that's a good point for us to get it up. During the meeting that we didn't start.
We
Yeah. Thank you.
Everybody for your attendance. Aye.
I don't know if we can have this.